Okay. So, a very good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of the National Productivity Council, I welcome you to this session on linear versus exponential growth, making organizations productive by Dr. Neerav Mandir. Dr. Neerav is a certified lead auditor for various standards, an assessor for lean manufacturing, HR analytics and metrics professional, employee engagement professional, innovation and strategy professional from Harvard University, USA, as well as a leadership coach. He is also the certified independent director and life member of the IICA under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. Since 2008, Dr. Neerav Mandir has been working with one of the world's largest diamond jewelry manufacturing and export conglomerate, Sri Ramakrishna Exports Private Limited. As Chief Human Capitals Officer, Dr. Neerav Mandir has the strategic responsibility for SRK's global HR, IR, administration, HSE, CSR, and compliance function. He is also the project administrator for SRK's state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities, certified with US Green Building Council. Now, I hand over the control to Mr. Amitosh Gautam for a very brief introduction to the National Productivity Council.
Thank you, Ritvik, for that introduction. And first of all, I would like to welcome Dr. Neerav Mandir for today's webinar. He's among one of the finest professionals in HR, and I hope most of you have read uh, his um, uh, his detailed account on HR practices in national dailies also. He has published in Economic Times. He's working on other things as well, I'm sure for that. And being one of the largest this diamond conglomerate, he remains busy, but still he has given us time. So I welcome Dr. Neerav Mandir in today's webinar.
Thank you.
Also,
Thank you very much.
for the benefit of our audience, I wanted to tell that today is the foundation year of National Productivity Council, and we are celebrating it as a Productivity Week. NPC was founded in the year 1958, and it is an organization under Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and with the prime focus of improving productivity. And when we talk about productivity, normally we think that it is just about machine productivity, manufacturing operations, but the lesser area of concern, which is not talked on a bit, it is about the human capital, which I think Neerav ji is going to pay a more focus on, because that is the area from which everything gets derived. And I have gone through his article and I was so intrigued because in my last education in I am Bangalore, we were always told that growth is not an option for you; it is something which you have to drive, and the growth will be derived if the human capital can be played into right actions. So I started reading a little bit more after reading your article, because there is a difference between two things. No? It's an attitude of the person. It's a growing attitude, or it is just a stagnant attitude. So I read a little bit and just wanted to add something, because you are going to elaborate on that, to something of my liking, that we have seen in organizations. There are two kind of people who are growth driven, so they will take their own initiative, they will find an opportunity in every situation, they will recognize the roadblocks, and with these new experience they will every time they wanted to learn something and do something better. That's what productivity is all about. But again, we see people who are with the opposite mindset. They don't want to change. They will lead whatever is being done in the past, and they think that like intelligence, communication, these are the core qualities of people. These are the innate qualities. But in this mindset, I think this is not the case. It is like how hard you work, how much you put yourself into it is the growth mindset. Because this is going to enable you as to perform better, and as an influential piece of, you can say it as a puzzle, that how some people are performing better in the same situation. To quote few of the like very notable people here, like Tony Robbins. So he quoted that there is no such thing as failure. There are only results. So if you start practicing it, of course, either you succeed, either you fail. But that is the result only. You should not call it as a failure. It is the learning which you will get. Similarly, to quote Albert Einstein, he used to say that it's not that I am so smart, I just stay with the problems for a little longer time. So that's the thing. If you stay with the problems, you understand what step you should not take, and then slowly, slowly you'll succeed. But this is the mindset. If you just claim yourself back right from the first step, definitely you will not grow. So I really thank you, sir, because you have written that piece and that has given us more inputs to remain positive in our day-to-day life in other circumstances. So we would love to hear you. Without taking much of the time, I would hand over the mic to you. This is being recorded. This is being presented in many forums. So over to you, Dr. Neerav Mandir. And again, thank you very much for your time.
First of all, thank you very much, Rutvik and Amitosh for a very humble and erudite introduction. And I really don't think that I deserve so much, so much of erudite introduction of mine. Having said that, first of all, it's a sheer coincidence that I'm speaking with NPC, where NPC is celebrating the 61st Foundation Day of National Productivity Council. I'm really, it's a matter of proud and privilege to be here and with you all, with the core team of NPC, who is doing a very noble and erudite work in the uh, growth trajectory of India. So thank you very much once again. As I have stated to you and my earlier article, which is on the growth, linear growth versus exponential growth, I would like to ponder upon my thoughts upon those articles, and I'll start to run the slides. And for a time being, I'll mute the video so that it can be gives the justification to the slides. Just give me a one moment, please. I hope the all is seeing the slide, Amitoshi. I hope.
Yes,
Yes, sir,
visible.
visible, visible.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much. So again, just to start the context, Amitoshi, you rightly set the context for this session. You talked about the mindset, especially as far as the growth of the individual within the organization is concerned. And you very aptly put that there are certain mindset with which the employees working in the organization. You also touch upon the growth mindset. You also quoted some of the quotes from eminent speakers in which you said that either you, if you're doing anything, if you do any stuff, either you fail, either or you will get success. I'll slightly tweak that quote in my own manner, and I would say that if the person is like really intending to do something, really would like to contribute to the growth of the organization, either the person will succeed or the employee will succeed or the employee will learn. There's a very nice story behind that entire article when General Johnson was heading the IBM, and due to the one of the very minor mistake of one of the manager, we lose the contract of almost $1 million during those time, and I'm talking about 1940s. And that person was so embraced with respect to his mistake, he put his paper in front of the chairman and then said that I want to quit because due to my mistake it happened. And General Johnson very wisely said that you have not made a mistake with which the company has not got the contract of $1 million, but company has invested that $1 million into you so that you should not be putting your paper. So this type of leadership skills are even required at the other end when we are talking about the employee-employer relationship. As I have stated, when I was going through the theme for this year for NPC, it talks about the circular economy for productivity and sustainability. The theme for this year of NPC, with which it will be working towards building the nation. So two interesting things when I just was going through the theme is first part is the productivity and the second part is the sustainability, especially in the context of the organization. Majority of the times this desired combination we hardly sees within the organization, and as I told that it is a desired combination within the organization when productivity meets with sustainability, because either the organization is productive enough and doing the growth within their vertical, or either the organization is sustainable enough to be working like very tediously and steadily. So this two can be a perfect combo for any organization to mark their presence in the world. We are like to share some of the current updates with respect to the being an HR professional. I always try to focus more on the HR aspect within the organization. And today, when the new labor code is going to be implemented from 1st of April 2021, so it gives a great flexibility and consistency to the organizations working in India. Especially the overtime working has become really easier with the larger quarterly limits, and the increased flexibility to offer overtime has been quite welcomed by the industry. Having said that, 2021 will be, according to me, is will be the year of change within the organization, and especially in India, where the India can be considered as a labor surplus country, where majority of the sectors are labor intensive, especially in the MSME part. So it will be a great paradox by transforming the existing employment policies like the new labor codes, and at the same time one is to also focus in generating the employment and talk about safeguarding the labor rights, because at the same time when we are talking about the transformation, other side, the challenges like windstorm and other uh, scenes happen. So it will be a challenging times for the government as well as for the organization to deal with both paradox at the same time. And this in turn will allow SMEs and entrepreneurs to leverage the economics of scales and participate in competitive markets. So this is something about when we are talking about the new labor code, especially in the context that we are setting for this session, when we talk about the linear growth versus exponential growth and employment outlook. So when I'm talking about the employment outlook, it doesn't mean that I would be only focusing on the employee part. In the coming slides, I will be also ponder upon my thoughts pertaining to uh, the the employer part also. So having said that, I'm assuming there is some issue. Okay, now fine, it's fine. Sorry. So just before starting the session, I would like to run a very short AV, which according to me, will set the context for the entire session, and I'll uh, share upon the details in the due course of time. So if I can just run the short AV in the interest of the respondents. So this was all about, and the tagline reflects the straight line is not always the shortcut. The reason why I wanted to share that short AV with all of you, because especially in the current times that generation, especially the current generation, wants everything on the top of it, everything very rapidly, everything when it's come to the monitoring part or the non-monitoring, they want every progress, every performance, every kind of a lucrative incentive on a very rapid basis, which might not be the case and which cannot be the rosy reality of the organization. The reason, because if we see in the AV, when the actual thing happened due to the gravity, but if we say the current context in the organization part, then I think that thing is really not desirable if one is expecting the said incident to be happen. So having said that, if we talk about the employer view, because as I told you earlier that we will be talking about both of the aspect, the employee view and the employer view. when you talk about the employment perspective of growth, linear growth or the exponential growth within the organization. So first we'll start with the employer view. As I told you, being a HR professional, I always say gaga about the HR practices. But at the same time, we also need to acknowledge the reality that business is really must. But at the same time, HR should be first. I'm talking about the HR means the human resources, the manpower. When we are talking about the employer view in this entire context, ideally these three things comes into my mind, out of which the first thing which says the identify the hidden capacity. When you're talking about the identifying the hidden capacity, there is very good shloka been written in Rigveda, which simply insinuates that amamantram aksharam nasti, nasti bulanoshadam, ayogyaham purusho nasti, yojakashra durlabha. It simply means that there is no word in this world which doesn't contain any mantra. There is no plant or vegetable in this world which doesn't contain any medical value or the herb value. There is no mankind, there is no human being, I would say, in this world which doesn't contain any value or the any gunas, if we talk in Sanskrit. Yojakasra Durlabha. Only the person who can identify the right set of skill is missing in the current scenario. And that is the kind of a sheer criticalities within the organization as of now, where those personnel are missing who can actually identify the right set of skill within that particular person and can utilize and can maximize the potential of that particular person. When we are talking about this first uh, bullet, it means that excess capacity could be in the form of underscheduling or overstaffing and is usually very difficult to pinpoint or identify, which is
Sir, sorry to disturb. We cannot see the slide actually.
you can't see the slide.
Yeah, it is only the first static slide.
Oh, okay. Let me just do it just one more time.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, sorry.
I I think there is some issue with this slide because I shared the screen and I'm not being able to move the slide. So
Okay.
okay, fine. I think it's. Are you able to see the next slide?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yes, now it is fine.
Perfect. Sorry for the inconvenience. Yeah. So when I was talking about the employer view and the growth of business line, the first parameter, they identified the hidden capacity on which I was wondering my thoughts. So it when we are talking about the data part, which is really critical in the organization context, where the workforce management, because to get where you want to go, first you need to know where you are. So for that, the data management, especially the workforce management solution today, allows for organization to use a metrics-based approach to identify capacity variations within the organization, which can further uncover areas where hidden capacity could exist. So we really need to think upon that what is the current state of the organization as compared to the talent part is concerned. So that is all about the first bullet. The second thing which really fascinates me is the matching demand to the availability. whether it's a matchmaking on the personal level or the matchmaking on the professional level. When you talk about the recruitment and selection, both of the matchmaking is equally critical in the life. Another area where organization can benefit from is to minimize the known productivity issues. The workforce management data can help organization quickly identify critical positions that are understaffed, and within the minutes identify the available resource, thereby minimizing the overall productivity loss. Because when we are working in the organization, it's really important to understand the contributions of the employee within the organization, whether the person is really contributing in the progress of the organization, and whether the person is really a right fit to the culture and the kind of a strategy of the organization. So that is really, I think, a critical part. The third thing and the last thing in the employer view is identify new norms of the productivity. We're living in an area, because if someone would have asked me almost a year back that please share your views about the hybrid workforce, I would say, like, especially by representing the manufacturing center, my answer would have been, we it's not possible for us to work in a hybrid model because it's a manufacturing setup. It's a, as it's a diamond manufacturing facility, we can't give away the diamond to any other person and then to their home and just ask them to do the cutting and polishing of the diamond at their home. So technically in the manufacturing sector, it's really challenging by applying the work from home or kind of a hybrid workplace model, but we had to. And in some of the department, when we resumed the operations in June 2020, we had to uh, redesign the entire sitting arrangement. We had to redesign the entire working scenario of the organization, where some of the employees were not required to be at the workplace because they were not part of the manufacturing, and the remote working was kind of doable for them. So as due to this pandemic, we had to redesign the entire scenario. And this is all about the gig working model, which has also been considered in this new labor code 2020. And it talks, for an example, if I say the outliers in the productivity on the lower end of the spectrum could indicate either skill or motivational issue that organization need to grapple with. Sometimes they could also be indicative of constraint in the work environment outside that need to be resolved. On the other hand, outliers of higher productivity could result in a breakthrough for the organization and introduce innovative work practices. So this is all about the third part, which is it talks about the identify new norms of the productivity. Now we'll go to the next slide, which talks about the growth of an individual. Because when I'm working in an organization, along with the growth of the organization, I also pursue that what is my growth and how I am making a progress in my respective organization. And that's where the theory comes. If you are working in any organization, which type of growth do you want in your career? Whether you are satisfied with the linear growth or whether you really want to progress exponentially and you want exponential growth within the organization. Just to make this theory more practical, I would like to quote an example where we are talking about two employees, employee A and employee B. Both of the employee started working in the same organization at the same age and at the same day. Just for the example, when we are talking about employee A, and if I talk about the characteristic of the personality traits of the employee A, employee A was pretty much disciplined in this entire like education career. Even when starting from the interview till the kind of onboarding part, the induction and integration part, he was so disciplined. He was always putting the extra effort on tasks, and this characteristic helped him to build the his journey within the organization. At the same time, contradictorily, when we talk about the employee, he was also concerned about the planning on his savings, whatever the salaries and the incentives what he was receiving. He was always concerned that it has to be saved in a due format. It has to be saved on a very disciplined basis, and saving is like the thing which he was much fond of. At the same time, when we talk about the employee B, so contradictorily, this employee B was slightly a kind of a lethargic guy. He was not even putting the extra efforts during the induction, integration, onboarding part, and when he was not interested to do any extra efforts and walking an extra mile for his task, especially the allotted task to him. And it talks about the less discipline, and he was even not believing in the saving of uh, the reimbursement and the salaries. So if we see the scenario, if we compare the scenario after 1 year, then this is the situation in which both employee A and both employee B are. Both are there on the same level, their job positions are same, and as A was having a habit of saving, he was having a little extra money in hand in compared to B because he was having that habit. At the same time, if we talk about the employee A, he was after 1 year, he was even more focused towards his goal, worked really hard in this entire journey, and he is always become a meticulous about the task being allotted to him. He was not thinking that it's a 9 to 5 job and my time is over, so I won't be able to accomplish this task. He was not having that kind of attitude, which generally been seen in most of the employees who are not so concerned with respect to their career progress. At the same time, is also is getting the promotion after year 2 because the management appreciated the extra mile efforts of employee A, and accordingly they also gave the promotion to the employee and also gave the pay rise, and due to that he was been able to save more money within the organization. I'm just giving you the hypothetical example to make you understand the entire concept that what I would like to bring to the table. And if we talk about the 5 odd year, the scenario is totally changed. But at the same time, I would also like to quote that if we compare the Maslow's hierarchy of need to the organization context, then this I would rate that there are 5 types of employees prevailing within the organization. It can be any organ, it can be into service sector, it can be into the manufacturing center. So those 5 type of I would say the respondents, or I would say the employees, the first type of employee, it's called a 5S characteristics, because it made me remember when you talk about the employment scenario of the employee A and B for 5 years. I thought let me also share those 5 personality traits which I called as 5S. The first S stands for Shrotas. It's all about, in Hindi, Shrotas mean the listeners. When we are doing any kind of initiative within the organization, this set of employees are always keen to understand the context. They are always keen to do the new things. They are always keen to do a kind of a very innovative and extraordinary efforts, what the management's expectations are. Their set of employees are always keen to match their individual's goal to the organization goals or the organization objectives. So these are the core shrotas of the organization. They are the core leaders of the organization. The second S stands for sushuptas. These set of employees are actually pretending that they are listening to everyone. They are pretending that they are adhering to the request of the management. They are pretending that these whatever the management says, they are doing the same thing. They are adhering to the request. But actually, they are susupshas. It's like when we are listening something, we are it is getting registered in our ears, but it's not getting registered in our behavior. It's not getting registered in our actions. So it's called a pretension part. So this is the second category of the employees, which is not so harmful, but not so harmful. The third category, this set of employees called sarotas. Sarotas in Sanskrit is a betel nut cutter. This type of employees spreads the negativity within the organization. It talks about only the negative aspects of the organization culture, organization practices, organization SOPs. They do have problems and challenge in each and everything which the organization does in the interest of the employees or in the interest of the business. So they can't be optimistic. They can't give affirmative replies. There was an example when one guy approached to the HR department requesting that I can't work, and then HR very wisely asked, "What's the reason why you uh, can't work and why you won't be able to work?" And the other person replied that it is so much of negativity inside and beside my sitting arrangement that each and every time I was always been told that this is bad, this is not good, no, this one is not working, this is really dreadful. So the HR advised, being a wise man, he advised that do one thing: have a glass of water, put it into your plate, and make it full. Now you have to walk a complete round of your entire sitting arrangement or your working desk and then come to me. He said, like, how the situation would change in that. He said, first do the task and then we'll deliberate upon it. The person, at the same time, it was a condition that the water should not get poured out from the glass. The person started making a round of the work desk, and after completing the round, because he was so engrossed into the task that the water, a single drop, can should not be come out from the glass while he was walking and doing the round before meeting the HR for the second time. And then when he came back, he said, the HR guy wisely asked that, what have you listened? And he said, like, I didn't listen any negativity. And he said, like, why? What was the reason? And then he very firmly he got the message that he was so engrossed into the doing and accomplishing the respective task that he could not listen any kind of negativity. So that was the piece of advice for all those shrotas who are being surrounded by the employees. We should not be having any kind of conversation, because the moment you start the conversation or deliberation or try to change them, ultimately you will be the full of negativities. So I think it's like one has to do the class apart mechanism with those sarota. The fourth set of employees, which I would say, is the sotas. They are actually doing nothing within the organization, and even the organization or the HR guy should not be wasting their time to change those behaviors, because it's sometimes it's inherited or sometimes it's like due to their upbringing. So rather than wasting time on those the character four, the called sotas, they do nothing. They contribute nothing to the progress of the organization, and they also know that they won't be survive long in the very cutthroating competition, especially in the current time. And the fifth category I would rate is saraktas, who are there in the organization for a very short stint. They come and they go. They don't want to contribute, they either to the individual growth or to the organization growth. So this all about the 5S methodology, which I would say uh, kind of the characteristic of the employees which we find within the respective organization. If we continue the story after 5 odd years, what is the situation? So after 5 years down the line, employee A is extremely happy in his career, and he's having the large chunk of money in the saving account, and he bought the house, he bought the car. And at the other contradictorily, employee B, if we talk about it, he started feeling the jealousy. He was so envious with the employee, because despite of starting the journey at the same time, he could not reach to that level where employee A has achieved. And he is like keep on uh, talking bad about that particular employee. So if we compare the scenario after 10 years, then employee A, with his very wise attitude, dedication, always by walking an extra mile, he become the part of the C-suite, which is the CXO level. And the management has put the faith in him, and he has made his stand in the organization in such a manner that it was really impossible to replace him. And that's where a stand which one is desirable to achieve, that you cannot be replaceable. So I think that's where, and the opposite side, if I talk about the employee B, he was completely into the very negative environment, and he was blaming his luck, or the blaming that only due to the luck of employee he has achieved that particular thing. So if we talk about the conclude this theory, so it also talk about the theory of karma, that whatever karmas you are doing, it's also been reflected in Bhagavad Gita and many religious books, that whatever the karma you are doing, ultimately it comes back. So the consequences or the efforts which you are putting, whether on an affirmative side or whether into negative side in the organization, while doing your task, while contributing your best for the organization growth, it ultimately comes back. But one has to be patient enough to wait for that right moment where it can actually be leveraged. And that was the kind of a part. If we talk about the same thing in the mathematical manner, we talk about, there is a concept called compounding, where one has to do regular efforts for a longer period of time, so that one can actually enjoy the fruits of those efforts in a longer run. And this concept is very been widely acknowledged by Mitoshi has also talked about the quote from Einstein. He has also quoted that the concept of compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, and he was so mesmerized and fascinated by the concept of compounding that he quoted this thing. And in the mathematical terms, if you like to understand that what is all about the linear growth and the exponential growth. So very simple, I don't need to reflect it, that if we do the addition of 2 for the 10 times, the total will be 20, which is a simple maths. But if we are expecting the exponential growth, that rather than doing the addition for our efforts, it has to be a multiplication of the effort, because the answer is really different when we are multiplying 2 for 10 times. 2 raised to 10 is the answer is 1024. And that was the secret behind the difference of the growth of employee A and the devastated situation of employee B. So this is all about the linear growth and the exponential growth. So again, at the same time, the result of addition of 2 plus 2 is almost 4. But if the same thing happens on the exponential mode or the compounding mode, and when they actually, the concept of compounding kicks off after doing the same efforts for a longer period of time and continuously, it gives the different picture. It gives the different kind of identity to the person who is actually doing the efforts for that particular thing. And many times, as I told you earlier also, that if you are doing a right set of efforts for your growth within the organization for a longer time, I must, the reason why I'm putting more weightage on the longer time is it's not possible that due to the, like we have seen the example in the AV, that due to the gravity, the shorter distance can be covered. So, but it is always a kind of a very niche efforts are required to expect exponential growth within the organization. Now we do have a choice that which growth will you like to have within your career. But the choice, if I ask the same question, is much easier to answer that we all want the exponential growth within the organization. But at the same time, we need to ask the question to ourselves that are we really ready to pay the price? Because when you talk about and we are expecting the exponential growth, it comes with a hefty price. Because if you want to achieve our dream, it has come with a price to pay, because there are no free lunches in this world. And that's what I'll conclude my session, and I'll open the floor for question and answer, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions and any of your concern, if I may I may be able to do it. So thank you very much once again, Amitoshi and the entire team of NPC, for having me, and the floor is yours, Amitoshi. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would request Ritwik, if you can just give a report for the whole session.
Hello, sir. All right. Thank you for being with us. If there are any questions, you can ask or post directly on the chat, and I'll narrate it to Dr. Nirav.
Yeah, probably we have to check it from our YouTube page also. But I believe that this is one of the very lucid session. You know, it has ended in 45 minutes, but in my opinion, it was so good to hear you, Dr. Nirav, that if it can be elongated, we would have enjoyed it more. So it is like it's a pleasure to hear you on the topic.
Thank you very much, Amitoshji, and yeah, I'll be more than happy to share any of the concerns, or if any candidate is having or any respondent is having any kind of a question.
Correct.
And as you said, if there are no questions, either it was so lucid to be pondered upon on that toe, or either it was like not really appreciated by the respondent. So, but I feel positive and I feel affirmative. So as you said, I by your point that it was lucid.
No, certainly I would say the analogy which you have given, like 2 plus 2 equal to 4, and that addition and multiplication, those are the things which people can easily relate to. I don't think so that they have to really ask something different other than understanding and doing on their own feet. So that's why I say that this was one of the very incredibly good presentation. That's what I'm saying, that if it have been continued, we will need to listen to you for a longer time.
I would have loved to do that, but in the interest of time, and as we are bound with the
No, thank
timeline,
you.
so yeah. So
Ritu, anything?
Sorry, sir. I can't.
Yeah, would you like to add something as the closing remarks? Thanking Dr. Nirav.
That's true. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Nirav. It was a really informative and very well structured session, and you walked us through a very relatable example to people starting out in a very similar job, how their growth was linear versus something that was exponential. For someone like me, getting out of college, who's barely introduced himself to an HR, to concepts of HR, this was very easy to relate to and very easy to understand.
thank you very much for your appreciation, Rutik, and thank you very much,
Thank you.
Amitoshi, for having me here.
Okay, so let us call it a day. Close the session. Thank you again, Dr. Nirav, for your time.
Thank you.
Happy Productivity Day.
Happy
Same to you.